Why some say the West is helping Russia more than Ukraine.
As the conflict enters its fourth year, Russia continues to earn hundreds of billions of euros from fossil fuel exports, much of it coming from Western countries that are supposed to be Ukraine's allies. According to data analysed by the BBC, Russia has earned over 883 billion euros from oil and gas exports since February 2022, of which 228 billion euros came from countries that have imposed sanctions on Moscow. This figure is more than 3 times the total aid Ukraine has received from its allies. Revenue from oil and gas makes up about 1/3 of Russia's national budget and over 60% of its export earnings, helping Moscow sustain its military campaign in Ukraine for many years. Of the 228 billion euros from Western countries, 209 billion euros came from member states of the European Union, EU. Despite embargoes, Russia still exports gas to Europe via Turkey, with a nearly 27% increase in the first 2 months of 2025 compared to the same period last year. Even in 2024, Russia's oil and gas revenue only dropped by 5% compared to 2023, while income from crude oil rose 6% and pipeline gas revenue increased by 9%. Part of Russia's oil is also returning to the West through a so-called refining loophole, where Russian crude is shipped to third countries, such as India or Turkey, refined into fuel products, and then exported to Western countries. The Centre for Research on Energy and Clean Air in Finland stated that 6 refineries in India and Turkey use 6.1 billion euros worth of Russian oil to produce fuel sold to sanction-imposing countries. This is a completely legal loophole that everyone knows about, but no one is taking serious action to stop it, commented Vaibhav Raghunandan, an analyst from CREA. Kaja Kallas, a senior EU official in charge of foreign policy, admitted that the bloc has not imposed the toughest sanctions on Russian oil and gas because some members fear an escalation of the conflict and rising energy prices. According to Mai Rosner, a campaigner at the non-profit Global Witness, many Western governments don't actually want to limit Russia's ability to sell oil and gas out of fear of disrupting the global energy market. Activists and experts all agree that Western countries have sufficient tools to weaken Russia's fossil fuel revenue, such as tightening enforcement of the G7 oil price cap, or addressing the issue of Russia's shadow fleet used to evade sanctions. According to CREA, the EU could also completely cut off imports of LNG from Russia without significantly impacting consumers. In 2024, only 5% of the LNG consumed in the EU came from Russia, while 50% of Russia's LNG exports went to Europe. Cutting off this source would hurt Russia more than it would hurt Europe, said Raghunandan. Mai Rosner emphasized the moral contradiction in Western policies. Frankly speaking, we are condemning Russia on the one hand, but at the same time funding them, and also funding the side opposing them in the conflict.
French President Macron warns U.S. against abandoning Ukraine to focus solely on confronting China.
French President Emmanuel Macron, on the evening of May 30th, warned the United States and countries in the Indo-Pacific region that they are risking a dangerous double standard if they shift their focus to confronting China while abandoning Ukraine. Speaking at the 22nd Shangri-La Dialogue, the region's largest security forum held in Singapore on Friday evening, May 30th, Macron emphasized that the US and Indo-Pacific nations risk adopting a dangerous double standard by neglecting Ukraine in favor of preparing for a potential conflict with China. His remarks came as the US is reportedly considering reducing its military presence in Europe to redeploy forces to the Indo-Pacific. The French leader warned that abandoning Ukraine would undermine America's credibility in deterring a possible future conflict between China and Taiwan. If you think Russia can seize part of Ukraine's territory without sanctions, without resistance, without any response from the international order, then how can you explain what will happen in Taiwan? What will you do the day that truly happens? Macron asked during his speech, which was attended by US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. The French president cautioned that abandoning Ukraine would not only have serious consequences for Europe, but would also weaken the United States' deterrent power over China concerning the Taiwan issue. His comments came amid escalating tensions between Beijing and Washington as the US considers imposing triple-digit tariffs over 100% on Chinese goods. China claims Taiwan as an inseparable part of its territory, and President Xi Jinping has not ruled out the use of force. Beijing regularly sends military aircraft and warships near the island. A Chinese aircraft carrier is currently stationed southeast of Taiwan. The US is pursuing a free and open Indo-Pacific strategy, which includes regularly sending warships through the Taiwan Strait and the South China Sea.